parents and communities and other stakeholders will always want to know what's in it for me. And we can talk about societal change, but by and large, it's parents want to know for their child what the difference is. Soon after beginning Crossing Passion, around September, October time, a parent came into me with her child and said that my child's just embarked at age 14 on her GCSE studies, and one of her subjects is in Ballycastle High School. And she said to me, I didn't send my child to Ballycastle High School, I sent her to Crossing Passion College. And, you know, I can understand the collaboration, I can understand through my appointment what the nature of the collaboration is, the benefit of the collaboration. And I could see so many reasons why I felt that lady's viewpoint was unreasonable. However, it was a valid viewpoint if it's her viewpoint, and I had to respect that. So I talked about the logistical side of things. You know, we have a limited number of people studying home economics, it was in this case, and for that reason we save money, we save curricular offer, we save teaching resource by offering it in one of the two schools, and we alternate it year by year so pupils will transfer across, and it's fairly seamless. If pupils walk across the road or they walk back. And the educational provision is just as good, and the pupil outcomes are just as good, and the accountability is just as good, and the information you receive about your child's education is just as good. But that's the way the Board of Governors have set it up in the provision this year. And the mother was very adamant and said, no, I've told you, my child's coming to Crossing Passion, and that's final. So we said, okay, well, we do have an alternative, and we certainly don't force anybody in the school to take part in the collaboration if that's their desire. So I took out the option sheets and the choices that were available to all young people, which we handed them all at age 14 and age 16, and said, so make your choices. And I circled all the ones that were only in Crossing Passion and said, there are your choices. And so the mother perused the document for a few minutes and spoke to her daughter and then said, but she wants to study home economics. And so then I said, well, this is the provision we have for home economics. Now the child subsequently went to Ballycastle High School, has had a very good experience, is now in sixth form, and was very, very successful. But those are the reality of some of the conversations you have with parents, and some of the fears and some of the aspirations which you have to counter, and you have to make very valid points about. So
it says there that both schools, the close proximity being either side of a road, Moyle Road, and for the uninitiated, they sometimes come, oh sure, it's easy for you to share, you're either side of the road. Now, there is a geographical impetus, it benefits us, there's no doubt, that the fact that we're not having spent a fortune on buses, busing pupils backwards and forwards. However, I mean, we mentioned ETI a wee minute or two ago. ETI would quote examples of schools that are equally close together and are not sharing to the same extent at all. So there's a sense of, I think, moral purpose around what goes on in Ballycastle, and that predates us, goes way, way back. So I think the risks were taken at a time, and you've just got to cement those with what we do bit by bit. The geography is a help, but as I say, this idea of moral purpose, having a sense of mutual respect for each other's differences, is what drove this. There is perhaps, to a degree, a uniqueness. Well, maybe that's too strong a point, but there's an element in terms of this community and the peripheral nature of it, in that in some respects, the history of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, this area maybe wasn't necessarily as impacted as much. Thankfully, we're not in a position of having to deal with peace walls, or there wasn't huge amounts of well, there was aspects, not huge significant amounts of conflicts. I'm sure for the families that where it did impact, it was very significant. But there was a degree of, I suppose, community cohesion to an extent here. And that was further cemented by, I think, good leadership in the local community from the point of view of the clergy in the town. Did seem to be ahead of their time in terms of reaching out to each other's community. And it's one of those chicken and egg things. Sometimes wonder what came first, the school, did that set the tone for the church, or vice versa? But there was a synergy and a symbiotic sort of thing worked there really, really well between those two key elements of a community. So that is important here. I think the peripheral nature is an element to it. It's not the only element to it. Still, there was a need for moral purpose, for integrity, and let the thing grow organically and nurture it and feed it and let it develop to what it has become today. There was always a sense historically that it worked best when you quietly get on with it. You didn't raise your head above the parapet, you just let it, you encourage it and let it go. In recent times there's been more, because of the significance of shared education, there has been more perhaps of a spotlight on what we do, which is nice to an extent. You're held up this model of good practice and maybe a bit more recognition of the hard work that does go into it. There's nothing easy about this, but at the same time, you're very conscious that you've got to bring everybody with you on this, and sometimes I don't know, as little shouting about it as possible is maybe the best way to go with it on occasion.
In the current climate of industrial action and the current climate of very, very limited professional development opportunities, we've been able to avail of some of the support from the external bodies to engage our staff, particularly together collaboratively in developing their professional practice and developing their outlook and developing their planning and whatever it happens to be, the challenges that they meet on a curricular level. So that's been really beneficial because we are a rural school and we're not the hugest of schools, but bringing two staff bodies together obviously multiplies the power, multiplies the development opportunity, and multiplies the capacity that we can bring to that. So that requires leadership and support from the Education Authority, from the department, from the other stakeholders, but it also requires ourselves to sit down as senior leadership teams in both schools and develop, identify the challenges that we face as staff bodies and to develop ways of bringing people forward and bringing people through that and responding to the needs of the young people as well as the needs of the staff. So those are some of the examples of what we've been able to do over the last couple of years. We have in particular this year focused on the induction processes we talked about, and we spent a lot of time in August saying, well, here's what the young people said last year and how it could be made better and how it could be made smoother. And we tried very, very hard to respond to that and give the young people the best and most confident start, because no matter if you're 11 or 14 or 16, going to a new school for the first time is a challenging thing to do, and not knowing your way about and getting, am I going to get lost? Am I going to look silly? Are people going to laugh at me? Will I know who my teacher is? Will I know what classroom to go to? How will I find my way? These are real concerns, and sometimes the most important barriers for young people. They're not worried about some of the baggage that we had on our shoulders back in those days. I don't want to speak out of turn, but at university, and I came from Lurgan, which was a very divided town at the time, and I suppose in some respects still is. But I was very lucky to have opportunities to take part in swimming and football and drama, and did mix across communities. But there was still a time and a place when people looked at each other and said, I wonder what she is, or I wonder what he is. And they were thinking the same thing about me. That doesn't happen these days, and it doesn't happen with our young people. They don't care. And that's the bottom line. And that's testament to all of us in education who challenge those things. But it works in Ballycastle, and it's tangible in Ballycastle.
When occasionally where you would see elements of something between students, it tends to be students we tend to address them very, very quickly. But I find that if it was perceived as an issue over identity or religion or politics or something like that, we deal with it, because if it's not that, it'll be a football team or I'd like a different musical group than they do or something. It's just whatever the tribalism, almost that type of thing, and it's just young people, and thankfully we can deal with what are seen in our community, in our society, as these bigger issues, but really it's no different than any other issue a teenager's going to face anywhere. It's just that it's dealt with appropriately, you talk to young people appropriately, you do your training, your induction, you cultivate this idea of mutual respect, and you sit down and take the time and give them the time to engage together. Whatever the issue is, it'll resolve. One of the benefits we had, I suppose, an advantage alongside, to promote and help with the shared education, both schools have very similar ethos. There's obviously a Roman Catholic maintained ethos associated, and others associated with Cross and Passion, but ourselves controlled sector school. However, they're both non-selective schools, pupils from 8 through to 18, both offering A levels. So if you like, a comprehensive style of education, which isn't that common really in this part of the world, and more so now than what it was. Both schools in many respects were ahead of their time in terms of engaging with that concept and that style of education. But the huge benefit from the point of view of Ballycastle was, I don't know whether it was foresight or good thinking when those decisions were made, or it was through necessity, but what it did do is remove the element of competition between the two schools, and that was a significant boon, I think, to the giving space to allow everything else to flourish and grow as well.
So I suppose the most exciting thing for us as school leaders and school communities at the present is the upcoming shared campus, and there's been funding under the Fresh Start agreement was announced in 2015 that there would be rebuilds of both schools. So the two schools would get 2 core buildings, and then there would be a shared facility with all the expensive stuff like IT and HE and science, etc. And all the sports facilities would be shared also. So the funding's been set aside for that. It's Fresh Start money. It's in UK Treasury waiting to be drawn down. It's just a matter of getting all the right people at the right time to get the right plans in place to move it forward. So we're very, very confident that mobilisation, that diggers will be in the ground in about 18 months' time in 2020. And that date does come and go slightly. It was meant to be October this year. Everyone's working together to make sure this happens because, as I mentioned, in Ballycastle at present, this is the right fit for the young people. It's the right fit for the communities. We're delighted to say that Causeway Coast and Glensborough Council have come on board and have committed £2.6 million to the project as well. And what their idea is to enhance the sports facilities, to make the hall bigger than you would get from a departmental handbook rebuild, to put floodlights in so they can be used in the evening times, to turn grass pitches into 3G and 4G pitches so they can be used in the evening times. And what they hope to do then is they will take ownership of them at a particular time, 5 o'clock in the evening, whatever it happens to be, and at the weekends. Now we couldn't be more delighted with that. There's very, very limited use of both our school facilities at the minute, but you're kind of hamstrung and bound by having caretakers on site and by insurance purposes and all the rest of those things. Having a stakeholder like that fully on board and committed to making a provision for the local community is massive. It's huge because the facilities in Ballycastle for young people and for anybody in the community who wants to take part in health and well-being and exercise are very limited. Having this facility, which everybody can buy into, will be very, very important. Myself and Ian had a sort of an off-the-record discussion this morning. At a time, Ballycastle, Ballycastle wouldn't. Some people would feel uncomfortable coming to Ballycastle for particular reasons at particular times, and we're very, very hopeful that over time, once people leave Ballycastle High School or leave Cross and Passion College and they have ownership of the campus, they have ownership. This was my school, this was my campus, that was my pitch, this was my sports hall. That they'll be more confident in being able to avail of that as they get older. Lots of local people from part of the hinterlands in particular will go to Ballymoney for their exercise and well-being, and that we're very, very hopeful that with council being on board and the young people having come through the experience of walking on the pitch and having ownership of it, that we'll challenge that and we'll start to break that down. So it's hugely significant, and I think that's been recognised by the special EU programmes body, who have now committed to fund the council end of things. So they've committed €3.1 million to the facility instead, because they recognise and they're confident in our ability and the school's ability and the council's ability to pull together to create something different, to create a different dynamic and a different conversation around ownership.
It was one of the, it was just like a good timing. It's one of those occasions where there was joint up thinking. You were able to engage with other stakeholders, i.e. the council, in terms, and that suited policy agendas that they had, and it suited the needs, the dearth of provision that's in the community. So it was just would appear to be as perfect a solution as they're going to get. Not easy. It has been a lot of negotiation, a lot of transactional conversations, a lot of documentation been drawn up, agreements been drawn up right throughout this process. Again, there's nothing easy about this, but where there is a will, there's a way. And equally, the facility also provides for youth provision. Again, a dearth of adequate youth provision facilities in the area. So youth service are obviously part of the EA, but maybe just on a arm's length in terms of their involvement historically within the context of Ballycastle in the town. We have a small youth club in our own school, meets the needs for the community and both schools, but this investment will see a significant growth in that and draw in significant numbers, hopefully young people from elsewhere in the province to come and engage in this part of the world. Lovely scenery, the coast, etc., to be able to experience a bit more of what Ballycastle has to offer as a destination, a tourist resort, what have you,